When it comes to our money, trust is absolutely everything, isn't it? We all want to feel, well informed to spot those potential warning signs long before they actually affect us. Today, we're embarking on a really fascinating and, frankly, quite unsettling deep dive. It's into a very specific account of alleged investment deception. This narrative involves an individual named Ghazala Din, and it's shared in the investor's own words. Now, we're not offering general financial advice here, not at all. Instead, we're dissecting one person's detailed first-hand experience, really focusing intently on the patterns of behavior described. So our mission today, to unpack this narrative, understand the reported sequence of events, the alleged tactics used, and crucially, what you might learn from looking closely at such a personal story.
That's exactly right. We're zeroing in on this highly specific account, detailing what they perceived as fraud. Our role isn't to make judgments on the claims themselves, but really to analyze the reported actions and reactions within this narrative. The goal is to pull out some clear insights into these complex situations where trust, especially financial trust, is reportedly broken and how that can unfold.
Okay, let's really get into this account then. It begins, like so many of these stories seem to, with investments that initially, well, they seemed legitimate up to a certain point. But then, according to this individual, there was this chilling shift. The scam began to materialize. At that point, this investor, much like others they mentioned Ghazala Din was supposedly scamming at the time, just wanted their money back, plain and simple. What's interesting about that initial phase, before things apparently went south, is how it sets the stage.
It absolutely does, yeah.
Right.
That perceived initial legitimacy is often the hook, isn't it? It builds this foundation of trust that makes it incredibly difficult for someone to pull back, even when things start to feel a bit off. This account really highlights that critical moment, that shift in perception from legitimate investment to recognizing, hang on, this could be a deception.
Right. So once that realization hit, the account details these persistent attempts to get the funds back. Talking many telephone conversations and text messages. And specifically, in September 2024, the investor made a direct request. Ghazala Din should go to her bank, get cash, get checks, make the refunds happen. And here's a really critical point. Ghazala Din apparently agreed to this course of action, which on the surface sounds like progress, right?
Exactly, and that's precisely part of the tactic reported here, it seems. That superficial agreement. An agreement in principle, you could say. It can sort of disarm suspicion temporarily. But as the account clearly states, despite that seemingly firm commitment, neither the cash nor the checks materialized. This immediate gap between the promise and any verifiable action, that's a huge red flag. The investor became convinced, according to the account, that Ghazala Din had no intention of complying, that she was just agreeing in principle only in order to stall making any type of repayments. It highlights this classic deceptive move, a pure cooperative to buy time, but with zero real intent to follow through.
And then came the excuses. They started piling up. The account says that in September 2024, Ghazala Din claimed her bank accounts were blocked again. What's really striking here is that it was the second time this exact excuse had apparently been used. What does that tell us from an analytical view when the same excuse pops up repeatedly?
Oh, that raises a really important question, yeah. When you hear the exact same reason for non-compliance, especially without any proof you can actually verify, it stops being just an excuse. It becomes a pattern, a tactic, really. The investor explicitly stated they did not believe her, saw it as just another diversionary tactic to avoid obtaining cash or the check payments. The repetition is key here. It feels like it's designed not just to delay things, but maybe to slowly wear down the investor's resolve, their patience, make them less persistent over time. It's kind of a psychological long game.
And fast forward to today, August 2025, the situation described is even more stark. Ghazala Din has apparently blocked my number. There is no way of communicating with her, just cut off.
Right. And this final act, this stonewalling, combined with everything that came before, the unfulfilled promises, the repeated, unverified excuses, it strongly reinforces the investor's firm belief, as they stated, that Ghazala Din never had any intention on returning my money, and that, in their view, it was a scam fraud from the beginning. What's also critically important, and the account stresses this, is what Ghazala Din never provided. No evidence that her bank accounts were blocked or how much money was in the accounts, and no evidence that there were actual legitimate and legal investments done in the first place. It was just, as they put it, excuse after excuse after excuse to avoid returning the money on fraud. That consistent absence of verifiable proof for any claim made is, I think, a profound takeaway here.
So what does this whole deep dive into one person's story mean for you, the listener? This narrative really highlights the critical importance of not just asking for details, but demanding verifiable evidence, and not letting that initial trust, however strong it felt, override caution when dealing with investments, especially when you're trying to get funds back. The pattern described here, from apparent legitimacy to agreements without action to repeated unproven excuses and finally to just radio silence. It offers a stark blueprint of alleged deception.
Yeah, what's truly fascinating is watching how that described pattern unfolds. You see the initial groundwork, the appearance of legitimacy, then the strategic use of those superficial agreements just to stall, then deploying repetitive, unproven excuses to buy more time, maybe wear the investor down, and ultimately the complete breakdown of transparency and communication about, well, everything, the alleged investments of the funds. This progression, as described, doesn't feel accidental. It seems like a deliberate, evolving strategy.
So a final thought for you to consider. In situations like this one described, where alleged deception unfolds over time, often starting with that facade of trustworthiness, how might someone listening distinguish between genuine temporary setbacks, which do happen in legitimate investments, and a deliberate, evolving strategy, specifically designed to avoid responsibility and hold on to those funds? Something to think about.